any one of the million SQL injected malware
so
sites.
let's imagine I'm on eBay. So what vulnerability would have to be on eBay today to allow a bad guy to introduce this?
eBay
attack?
as it functions right now would be vulnerable.
So today you can put live JavaScript on an auction listing, and that would be all you need.
Although you don't need JavaScript.
Well, that was the interesting thing. So if it's cross-site, if it's vulnerable to cross-site scripting, you can use that to introduce this, right?
Yeah, you could. It's just it probably would be more difficult to cross-site script the user first. Just let them land on a page that you control. It's, you know, blog site, MySpace profile, eBay auction listing. You don't have to cross-site script them. You just got to get running JavaScript in their browser. You could probably buy an ad on a network and get it done. Yeah.
Well, like, for example, I might be trying to get someone to bid on an eBay auction, right? So if I'm specifically targeting a particular site,
Yes.
what other vulnerabilities need to be around to allow you to do
If you wanted to force somebody to bid on something
Right.
via link click that they didn't see, yeah, you certainly could.
Right, but what vulnerability has to be on eBay today?
Oh, it just, well, you may or may not call it a vulnerability, but right now on the auction listings, you can put live JavaScript on the system.
Okay.
Some people call that a vulnerability, like persistent cross-site scripting. Others would say, well, we want the users to be able to do that. So you get into those.
Yeah.
So.
So Robert, you keep saying you don't need cross-site scripting. You don't need JavaScript.
Not necessarily. It makes it easier, but not necessarily.
It makes it easier in many ways, but you don't need it.
But would you not need JavaScript on someone else's site? Like if I'm trying to target eBay, is there any way to target them without putting malicious JavaScript on their site?
Yes.
There is? And then would that attack be on their site or would it be somewhere else?
Either.
So it's always nice talking about generalities, but thanks.
Yeah, it's.
Sorry.
There's a lot more questions. But.
Dave, I expected you to throw balls. Oh, you still got one. I see it.
So you said that the behavior is slightly different when this is in place. So how would one recognize that this is going on, or what can be done to protect against it?
Use links to protect yourself.
Links?
Links.
Text-based
browser, no dynamic anything.
Yeah, it's going to be really hard to. It's going to be really. I guess
every major browser.
I think in all fairness, you could, if you restrict the use of JavaScript way down, you keep your browser logged out, you remove all plugins and disable it, you get a lot out of it. It's not going to be perfect.
You still would be vulnerable to a number of bad things.
And can this do a pseudo click to, i.e. pop-ups, or just things on the page?
I don't know that we're able to do that. I haven't researched it enough to tell you definitively no. Right now, my instinct says no.
Okay,
it would be limited to things on the page. Yes, sir. Well, I'm sorry, I just got a microphone. I lied to you.
Well, could this be used to populate forms, query strings, or anything like that? And
sort of.
What was the question?
Can we populate forms, query strings, that kind of stuff? Sort of. The answer is sort of.
It depends on the instance. It would depend.
I actually have pseudo demo code that does almost that, where we're hijacking multiple clicks, where you need to click option boxes or do something else to make an action occur. But as far as filling out forms, you'd ultimately still have to get them to fill out a form. So.
It depends. Let's just call it DHTML. Normally, you would do a JavaScript and positioning. So if you want to use CSS too, you could.
Okay. And could you go through the list of vendors who have been notified? I know didn't you mention Cisco? That's the one I was
mention Cisco.
Okay. We just happen to know them. We figured it was a browser-based issue, so both browser vendors know, but it will indirectly impact a lot of other people, just like it impacted Adobe.
I specifically had an NDA already set up with them. They asked for a very specific reason. They're vulnerable for a very specific reason, so I'll let them know.
Okay. And is this addressed or partially addressed in like today or yesterday's Firefox update in some way?
No.
Zero chance.
No. In the front.
So, in the talk earlier about the web app vulnerability database, there's the idea of vulnerabilities versus actual threat. Do you think once this is released or talked about, it's actually going to present a real viable threat, or is it just going to be something like CSRF, which is an ongoing problem?
So the question is, will this be a viable threat going forward? I think it always takes, anytime we talk about a new attack technique, it takes about 18 months, and then it'll be a viable threat. The bad guys will use whatever's easiest for them at the time. I guess this could be easy. I don't think they'll use it right away.
Yeah, I would suspect that this will not be used by attackers in the near future, simply because there are easier things out there.
And is there, if you can talk about it, is there a way to protect against it? It's sort of like internal cross-site request forgery. Is there a way to put mechanisms?
It's like 20 questions.
That are, is there a way to put a mechanism in place that's similar? Because normally that you're checking to see if the request was actually made by someone who means to make it from a different site or when they're not actually on the site. This is someone who's on the site making a request they didn't mean to make. But can you use similar mechanisms to protect against it?
I don't think so.
I mean, there might be some interesting kludgy hacks to be able to do some of that stuff, but there's no easy defensible thing. I can just say, use this current existing technology.
That's an interesting idea, so we'll probably look at that one.
The most obvious one is don't let yourself be framed ever. But that only affects cross-domain stuff. So if it's still on the same page, if I'm trying to get you to do something on a page and I already have CSS or JavaScript or whatever running on that page that will allow me to do something bad.
Everybody familiar with that one-line frame-busting JavaScript code? It's good stuff.
Yeah, use it everywhere, all the time, every page, everywhere.
Oh, I failed.
Correct. Click gerbling.
I haven't heard that one. That's a new term. Yeah, I think it's very similar to all those same exploits we've been talking about all these years. Very similar.
Is it?
It's the additional stuff that we can't talk about.
Is
The
it
rest of-
one-to-one
the rest
or
of
is it multiple clicks?
Well, look at him being all subversive.
Is it one-to-one or multiple? You would just need one. It depends on what you're trying to get the user to do.
Well, let's say I want them to forward their Gmail to me. Can I force them to go through a path, or is it just they click once and then?
You control what they click on. So if it requires a multi-step flow, you have to get them to click multi-step times.
So they have to play like a flash game
Yeah.
where they're like shooting at something.
That would be the.
Exactly.
That would be, yeah.
That's ideal. If I can get you to play Flash games, you're mine.
Can you make a button that adds a Gmail filter with one click? You might be able to.
Yeah, I don't know enough about that particular flow to tell you. And I think you have to fill something out to get your stuff to forward, I think. And in that case, then you have to get them to fill that out. But
Okay, cool.
I tried to search the bug tracking of WebKey and Mozilla. I got nothing.
WebGear and Mozilla.
Yeah. Is it a kind of cross-zone security problem?
Cross-browser?
Cross-zone
Zone?
security zone.
It depends on how the individual browsers treat that zone and in the way that you're instantiating it on whatever page. Sometimes I think they are completely safe, but we're also talking about certain browsers where zones actually apply. There are tons of browsers where they have no concepts of zones, so it'll totally depend on the browser.
Between native object and the JavaScript processor.